When it comes to our descriptions of Floyd's of Leadville products, you've probably heard us mention two things frequently: isolate and full spectrum. So we thought we'd take a moment to clarify and particularly define those types of CBD because it's important that you know what's going into your body.
Yeah, to understand it. So here it is. Full spectrum uses the whole plant, and it contains trace amounts, when we're talking truly trace amounts, less than 0.3% of THC and other cannabinoids that might well enhance the CBD effect on the body. Isolate, on the other hand, is a THC-free, truly removed alternative that contains no trace amounts of other cannabinoids for those people who prefer to avoid even the most minute traces of THC.
The upshot is full spectrum has better absorption and more of that rest and recovery effect than isolate. But Floyd's understands that THC is not for everyone, even when the amount is well below what people use recreationally. And that's why there's isolate as an option.
Yeah, people who get tested routinely might want to just avoid even the possibility of a positive with that. I keep both around personally. Full spectrum is great for winding down before bed. Isolate is great for times when I just want, a little bit of rest and recovery and some inflammation control. With many of the Floyd's products, whether that is balms or capsules or drops, you can find them either in the full spectrum or in the isolate variations. Check out all of the Floyd stuff at Floyd's of Leadville. It is our presenting sponsor now for 2 seasons in a row, and their URL is floydsofleadville.com. Use the code FATTY at checkout for a 15% discount on all your orders.
And thanks, Floyd's of Leadville, for sponsoring the show.
3, 2, 1.
Leadville, the podcast for the 100-mile mountain bike race presented by Floyd's of Leadville. It's season 3, episode 9 of the show that breaks down, builds you up, gets you ready, and freaks you out for the highest and hardest one-day mountain bike race in the country. I'm Michael Houghton, Hottie for short.
And I'm Eldon Nelson. A lot of people call me Fatty. And on our show this time, the return of Rebecca Rusch. It has been a while since Hottie and I have talked with her, and lately we've all been a little bit down and we've been a little bit doubtful about our racing future, and we wanted to bring in some positivity and power. And there is no one better than the Queen of Pain. And let's say she is also the Queen of Positivity, Rebecca Rusch. Heads up, she has a challenge for all of us, and it is one that I think all of us can use. But first of all, before we get to that, I want to talk a little bit about the big elephant in the room. The race, of course, has been canceled for 2020. I assume that everyone who listens to this show already knows that. And right now, I'm going to say it is 100% okay to take a minute and just be bummed. There are not, for most of us, going to be any races this year. I am personally, I am still a little shell-shocked. I am still wandering around in a daze. I didn't go on a ride today. I was like, what's the point? But that is not sustainable. We are going to talk about where we are. We're going to figure out where we're going. We're going to make the smart next move, and we are going to make this positive for as many people as possible in as many ways as possible. So please stick with us. We're going to share more stories, more race stories, more techniques, more tips, and hopefully we are going to find a way to do some good for the people and the city of Leadville.
Yeah, I totally get it, why folks right now feel like a little bit of them has been torn out. Because that's what Leadville does to you, especially for the veterans who've been there before. Man, this thing becomes part of who you are as a rider, as a racer. It comes up in daily conversations once you've done this race. So yeah, you're going to feel a little ripped off at this point. But big picture, there's a lot of stuff going down right now. And the town and the county simply felt like they had to react at this point. We're going to get through this. We're going to get over it. We'll be racing again. We'll be fine. There's a lot of people out there suffering right now that deserve our thoughts as well. And we want to think about that too as we, consider what the county had to do, what Lifetime has to do as they move forward. Look, by the way, the meeting, there was a meeting that this where this decision was made. It was held right on the 12th. It was held by the Lake County Board of Commissioners. You can actually go listen to the whole meeting if you'd like. They have a YouTube channel. And if you have the time, about 2 hours, I'd encourage you to do so. It's what I did today. I know, fine way to spend your day looking at YouTube and listening to government officials. But if you don't have the time, here's the gist of what was covered in the meeting. Basically, Fatty, commissioners saw little chance that the state-imposed 250-person public gathering limit would be lifted in time for the multiple summer events planned in Leadville every year. And even if it were lifted, it would likely go to something like 500 or 1,000 at best, and that still does not get the LT 100 to the start line. But the point was raised during the meeting. Why not wait to make this decision? I mean, who knows? Maybe in 30 days, we have some miraculous turnaround. Now, the LA County Director of Planning, Ann Schneider, addressed that question.
I completely understand, that thought to kind of wait, but we've had those discussions a bit, and there's just a lot of planning that goes into events in a regular season, but in a season that has the issues this one does, it would be pretty difficult, I think, to kind of do last minute coordination, and it might set everybody up for failure a little bit.
And I think I called her LA County. She's Lake County Commissioner. That's because I live in LA County, Fatty. So it's a Lake County Commissioner, Director of Planning, Ann Schneider there, talking about why just waiting wasn't the right idea. Lifetime, the public safety in that area all need to start planning now, not a month from now, not 6 weeks from now. They need to start doing that now. So they were looking for a decision right now. Now, commissioners also noted that the Breck Epic and the Trans Rockies run had just been canceled. So they kind of took a look at that as well. And look, Lake County and Leadville have done a really great job flattening the curve. They've had relatively few cases. And as of the day of this particular vote, the county had recorded no COVID-19 related deaths. So the vote was unanimous to cancel all summer events. Here's County Commissioner Kayla Marcella.
We are doing the very best that we can for the greater good of our community. And that balancing act of, opening and protecting the health of our community and our vulnerable populations is definitely not something that is easy to navigate. And it's definitely something that we take very seriously. And so, I trust and believe in the work that our health department and our medical professionals in our community are doing. And so thank you to my fellow commissioners for their hard work as well around these public health orders, and for us working together collaboratively as a board to be sure that we get through these hard conversations together.
I think you can tell by the tone of Commissioner Marcella's voice right there, this was not an easy choice for them to make. They understood the impact of what was going to happen here. And canceling large events in a town like Leadville that so greatly depend on the income that they bring is a major deal for these commissioners.
It is. And there's no one who's excited about this, right? Everyone is sad. That said, what we have is a decision that has been made, and it's a decision we as racers and as people have to respect. And I think that going forward, that's sort of we draw a line and say, okay, that's behind us now, and now we look to the future and we figure out how to make the best we possibly can, Hadi.
Now, one side note, Lifetime was also involved in this meeting and indicated that they could still put on some type of event to benefit the community. And they asked commissioners to keep them updated on what size of event could be allowed this summer. So maybe some type of small lifetime promoted event that would be staged in Leadville could happen, but most definitely would not look anything like the LT100 we're used to.
No, it won't. It won't happen, obviously, in 2020. We all just got to cross our fingers for 2021, to be quite frank. I don't want to start looking and tearing apart a year and change from now, but we have some good options for those of us who are having to defer. You can defer to next year or to 2022 or to 2023, and there's good reasons to do each of them, and we will probably pick them apart in detail in future episodes. But for right now, racers, start thinking about what the best choice is for you, or what as far as when to defer to, or whether to take some of that money that is already sunk cost for you and use it to help someone in Leadville right now. There are 3 good options for who you can donate your money to in either NICA, the Lifetime Foundation, or the Leadville Legacy Foundation. They all have great, compelling reasons. We might talk about all of them in future episodes, but there's that deferral or just straight up cancellation and get your money back. Different people are going to have different reasons for doing all 3. You got to give Lifetime props for making all of those options available in pretty short order. Hadi, most time when you and I talk about Shimano, it is about their XTR line. I, for example, am building a bike right now, and it will have XTR all over the place. Sometimes that bike this 9er RDO is going to be single speed sometimes. Sometimes it's going to be geared. It's going to be XTR no matter what. Speaking of gears, though, XTR has been 12 speed for 2 years now, and it's just been so good.
Yeah, pretty incredible. 2 years of 12 speed from XTR. But soon after, Shimano extended those 12 shifts to its XT and SLX lines, and now that gearing has made its way to the Dior level. Yeah, you can get 12-speed shifting, that's shifter, cranks, cassette, chain, and reel derailleur from Shimano for just under $300 in the Dior line. That price does not include the possible rear hub upgrade required, but still, that is a wallet-friendly Grupo, if I do say so myself.
And not just wallet-friendly either. The fact that it's inexpensive does not mean that it is somehow a low-grade or poorly made Grupo. It is still, if you were to compare Dior now to XTR of 5 years ago, you would choose the new Dior. It is really, really good. And most Leadville racers are probably going to be going with XTR or XT stuff, a mix of both. But if you're building a second bike or a bike for helping a friend who's getting into mountain bike going, this is a really great way to go. And don't worry, if you still prefer or just want to go with something a little bit simpler, if you just like 11-speed or 10-speed stuff, that gearing remains part of the Dior lineup. And so go to bike.shimano.com for more, and we're also going to make sure we have a link to that in the show notes for this episode at leadville100podcast.com.
It is your women's champion, Rebecca Rusch from Ketchum, Idaho. Welcome back, Rebecca.
Again, Rebecca Rusch has come through for us just when you thought there was not a lot to aim for. The First Lady of Off-Road Endurance Racing comes up with a terrific idea. So get ready to sign up and giddy up with our friend Rebecca Rusch. Rebecca, it is great to talk with you again in these weird and, let's face it, awful times, but I hope things are going okay for you.
Things are okay. I am at home in lovely Idaho, and there are definitely almost no place I'd rather be, so I'm in a good spot.
It is nice to live somewhere you love. It makes a huge difference, doesn't it? I'm kind of the same way. I'm in Alpine, Utah. We've visited each other's hometowns, and we both have some amazing riding and people around us. But in addition to being one of the most celebrated and accomplished cyclists who's ever been known, you are also a first responder and live in a place where there's been a great deal of need between you and your husband, Greg, for first responders. How has your spring and summer been going?
Yeah, my husband is a full-time firefighter, and I'm a part-time volunteer. And our county, Blaine County, had the unfortunate notoriety for a while early on in this pandemic of being the number one per capita infected rate in the nation. And a lot of that reason is we're a tourist town, and so people travel here. And we also are a very small town with a population of, 3,500 people. So small but mighty medical facility. So for second half of March and first half of April, things were pretty serious here. And, many of my neighbors surrounding us have all been infected by COVID, and it's very front and center where we live. Thankfully, our hospital, they had to really transport people out of the valley who were diagnosed and sick. And so there were a lot of ambulance transports. There is still a very high level of protective equipment being worn on every call that happens, whether it's COVID related or not. And we've, really had to change the structure of how we respond to emergencies here. But everybody's pulling together, and our numbers are flattening, which is great. But I will say, as a small tourist town, people are bracing for when visitors come back. And I think around the world, this is not a new situation. Once people start traveling and moving, I don't think we're through this, unfortunately, yet. And obviously, people have been really proactive, and social distancing has been working, which is amazing. So, it's very unique times that none of us have ever seen before. I really do feel like we are navigating without a trail map here.
Yeah. Well, I want to say, just probably on behalf of anyone who has ever needed a first responder, a firefighter, an EMT, thank you to you and to Greg for not just making, having this intersection of, the love of cycling and events as part of your life, but for doing the work that you need to help people who really need it during this time. That's super important. So, thanks to you and to folks that for taking the risk at personal cost to do stuff like that. Thank you.
You're welcome. But I think we all are trying to do things that, make a difference in our world. And absolutely. And if you really do love your first responder, I'll just give a little plug, or your firefighters locally, when it comes around to budget times for small towns or big towns, vote for a fair living wage for nurses, teachers, firefighters, because unfortunately some of the most selfless jobs don't get paid very well. And so that's just my little plug for how you can make a difference voting. That's a great point. I'm a husband of a nurse, and so I'm very well aware of what the finances are for trying to make a living as just with one nurse income would be real tough. Yeah, absolutely.
Rebecca, if I understand the timeline correctly, you were out on the Iditarod Trail when kind of this whole thing started blowing up, and you came off a trail, and surprise, surprise, the country's kind of in the throes of something pretty crazy. Is that how the timeline worked for you? Yeah, my husband and I, March 1st through 7th, we're on the Iditarod Trail doing the Iditarod Trail Invitational through Alaska, self-supported, absolutely no communication, no services out there, a few little remote lodges. And we came out to a global pandemic really blowing up. We had to fly home through Seattle, and the airport was empty. And that was the first time we started seeing the news. And it really was quite a shock, because we were, by choice, we were quite isolated in Alaska. And then, of course, came home to the self-isolation in the pandemic, and in our valley, in our home, things really blowing up. That was a very strange sort of homecoming from a really intense event to then an intense, public global event as well. And that kind of leads us to the main thing that I wanted to talk about in this little conversation is something that you have been putting together very quickly
called the Rebecca's Giddy Up Challenge. And this is, unlike most races, definitely not going to be canceled. And in fact, it was put together because a lot of us are finding that either our main or our minor events are in question or being canceled. And frankly, this caught my eye because I need something to give me some motivation right now. And I saw this and I go, wow, this is it. So tell us what the Giddy Up Challenge is and what it's for.
Yeah. And I mean, it kind of segues from me coming out from doing, the hardest event and the most inspiring expedition of my life from the Iditarod Trail Invitational, and gearing up then for, the next events that were supposed to happen in the spring. And, coming out to COVID, there was, I probably, I went like all of us through sort of the stages of grief of, denial, anger, depression for the second half of March and first part of April, and was really finding I had no motivation to train. It was just kind of like sort of numb, and my coach and I were really just like, what's it going to take for you to get on your bike and train and be motivated? And I started to identify that I really needed an event and I really needed to do something. And so I feel like sort of the next level of, going through kind of the acceptance that COVID is here. We can't go back on the trail. And so I decided I needed to do something proactive. And the motivation behind launching Rebecca's Giddy Up Challenge were that I personally needed motivation, and I knew that all my friends needed motivation. I missed my bike community. And I felt this strong urge that I really had to do something for COVID relief. And, the fourth aspect is, my big event in September, Rebecca's Private Idaho, may or may not happen this year. We don't know yet. And so I started thinking, how do I still achieve my mission, of motivating myself, challenging and inspiring other people, and being good, giving back to the bike community through my foundation. And so Rebecca's Giddy Up Challenge, I came up with this idea of something that I've never done, which is an Everesting challenge. And that's 29,029 feet in one day of climbing. And I'm like, okay, I've never done that. That would really scare me. That would really make me train. And I find, I need events that are big and audacious to get me on my bike every day and to make me do the hard work. And so Rebecca's Giddy Up Challenge is basically anyone could do it from anywhere, wherever you are. You can do it indoors, outdoors, you can do it running, you can do it cycling. And there's 4 elevation challenges from right about 5,000 feet up to 10, 15, and then the full Everest is 29,029 feet. And it's $20 to enter. And that money is going to go towards COVID relief through the CDC Foundation, World Bicycle Relief, that is providing bikes for healthcare workers in Africa, South America, around the world, and also People for Bikes. And they are doing COVID-specific relief on bike infrastructure as well. And so it checks all the boxes for me. And I mean, what I found sort of in that depression period for me, where I had no goal to shoot for and was finding out I wasn't my best self and I wasn't training, is, events are great, but they really aren't going to change the world usually. But I find for me personally, when I'm physically strong, I'm emotionally strong, and I do better at my job. I'm a better wife. I'm a better firefighter. And so people may think, oh, well, why do I have to train? And there really is I think, an important wellness aspect to us, maintaining physical fitness, because I really do believe that it connects to the whole rest of your life and how you perform just as a human.
Yeah. And I got to say, this snapped me back into more of a training mode. I need something on the horizon to look at, right? I start wandering and veering left and right if I don't have a point on the horizon to work my way toward. And that's kind of what this is giving me. I'm not... my wife and I had a conversation about which one of these we want to do, because we want something that is going to be a hard effort, but also something that we can achieve. Setting a goal that is simply unachievable is not really setting a goal at all.
Right.
And we decided, you know what, we are not currently in condition, and we're not by the 23rd through 25th going to be in the condition to do an Everest. And so we set the mashed potato because that's around 16,000 feet of climbing in one day. And that's going to be hard for us, but that's achievable. That's something we can I think, that we can do, and we're going to be cooked afterward. That's like doing 3 times the equivalent elevation of the Rebecca's Private Idaho course. So that's something we're going to be proud of, but it's also something we can do.
And that's why, there's a short runway to this. And so people have been asking me, like, how do I choose? I don't know, like, I can't do an Everest. I'm like, well, that's why there's 4 distances. Choose something that is hard, is going to, like you said, catch your attention, and you've got to commit to it. But honestly, in 2.5 weeks, you're not going to change your fitness that much. So you need to choose something that is, is kind of within your wheelhouse. And, my coach and I, Tim Cusick, we're doing every Tuesday, how to prepare for Rebecca's Giddy Up Challenge. And we're doing webinars of because you're not going to change your fitness a lot, but what you can do is really sharpen your fitness, and you can take care of your nutrition, you can get your sleep, you can plan your aid station, you can control all those things so that you really have the best day possible. And honestly, what I tell people too, whatever level you choose, they're like, I don't know if I can do it. And it's like, and I don't know if I can do the Everest. I'm actually choosing to do it on gravel on the first climb, Trail Creek climb of Rebecca's Private Idaho. And I'm making it harder. And I actually don't know if I can do it under the 24-hour, Everesting rules. But if we don't do it and we fail, we don't really fail. We've trained for a goal. We've raised money for COVID relief, and we've gotten together over Memorial Day weekend as a community. And so I may not be able to achieve what I've set my mind to either.
Now, if I know my Everesting rules, and I do, because this is something I've looked at before, you don't have to do it in 24 hours. You're just not allowed to sleep. So if it takes you 30 or 36 hours, that's fine. You just can't go to bed.
I've set a goal of 24 hours, but yeah, it has to be one push. I think it's going to take me 20 to 24 hours. And that's okay. Some people will do it faster, some people will do it slower, but I really wanted to do it on the Private Idaho course. One, because it's one of my main training hills and I love it. It's beautiful. You know the hill.
I do.
And I also kind of wanted to give a nod to Private Idaho and the event and our fundraising, because that event has always been a fundraising event.
So, Fatty, you caught my Instagram shots the other day out riding an actual trail. Yay! they've just reopened trails here in my area, and I really needed some dirt under my wheels, man. I was jonesing for that. So you probably also saw that I was wearing and proudly so, my Leadville 100 mountain bike podcast jersey made by our new sponsor, DNA Cycling.
I'm so happy that you're able to ride again. And of course, you and I have made a big deal already on how DNA does a terrific job with custom apparel, like our jersey from last year, our jersey that's going to be coming in, just in a few weeks. And they just do such a great job. I can personally attest to that fact, because they have made not only these jerseys that we've done this last year and coming up, but my Fat Cyclist gear from years past. Our listeners should also know that if they need just a plain jersey or some bibs or arm warmers, whatever, they can go to the DNA site and get great gear at a great price without all of that fancy custom art. DNA has a great line of cycling clothing, dozens of sizes and different cuts. They have kid sizes too, and it's all made in Italy. Their clearance page, it always has great stuff to pick from. So even if you're not in the market for a custom kit, click on over to dnacycling.com. Treat yourself to some nice new bike clothes. DNA stuff looks great, feels great, fits great, and there's just nothing like a new kit to make you feel better. That's dnacycling.com.
All right, let's get back to Rebecca and how to put some giddy up into your cycling, even though we don't have a Leadville Trail 100. What other rules Rebecca, do people need to be mindful of as they enter this challenge?
Yeah, so we have all those rules and FAQs on my website and Rebecca'sGiddyUpChallenge.com. But basically, like Fatty said, you choose your elevation, you choose one hill, and you repeat that hill over and over and over again until you hit your goal. You're not supposed to go home and sleep and, or take a nap, or if you're doing it indoors, it's meant to be one continuous push. And of course you can take a rest, fill your water bottles, all those kinds of things, but it's meant to be one push. So people can choose over Memorial Day weekend, May 23rd through 5th, any of those days, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, from midnight, 12:01 Mountain Time, to Monday at 11:59 p.m. Mountain Time. So anytime in that zone, wherever you are around the world, you can take on your challenge. And if people want to be scored and be on the leaderboard, they need to record their challenge on a Garmin or any sort of a device they have and upload it to Strava. So we have a Strava Run Club, Rebecca's Giddy Up Challenge Run Club, and a Strava Rebecca's Giddy Up Challenge Bike Club. And so for each category, indoor, outdoor, male, female, there's going to be prizes. We've got a live and a giant bike to give away. We've got Envy wheels. We've got Garmin. So it actually is an event. Like Hadi said, this is, if you choose to race it in that way, then absolutely get in the Strava clubs, record it, and upload it. And there will be prizes. There'll also be fundraising prizes, so you can choose to fundraise. And there's random prizes and virtual high fives. And so people don't have to race against one another. But if you're in that mindset, I'd absolutely say treat it as a race and really, dial your nutrition in, your clothing, your bike, your whatever, and treat it as such. Because I think when we commit to something and actually go all in, we elevate ourselves. You elevate your fitness. You elevate in a lot of ways, much differently than if you're at home training alone, being like, I did an hour and a half. That's good enough. I don't need to do 2 hours. It's pretty easy to slack and not be as accountable. But having a group setting like this really does, you raise the bar for yourself.
It's absolutely true. I mean, I got to say, I was currently in a funk because I was supposed to be in Cortez, Colorado this weekend, racing the 12 Hours of Mesa Verde. And, it's something that I've been looking forward to. I've never done the race before, was very excited about it. Instead, I'm home. Today, like for the first time in a couple of weeks, Lisa and I were talking, excitedly talking about, well, where are we going to ride this? What hill are we going to use? What distance are we going to do? Where are we going to put the car? Where are we going, what food are we going to put in our car so we can do this? It gave us something to focus on and get excited about. And while, $20 is, it's not a lot of money. It's enough skin in the game and it's doing something good. So I don't know, it gave me something to be excited for in the very short term. You need something kind of close to you. I always have races in between me and my main event, and with things as uncertain as there are, it's nice to have something that I know for sure is going to happen. So I encourage all Leadville racers. This is going to scratch the itch that you've been wondering. It's like, how do I scratch this thing? It's going to be a nice way to do something good for people and to get yourself, kind of back in the mindset that you love to have.
I love hearing that you and Lisa are getting all kind of into it. I mean, that's the idea. And the same thing is happening for me. I'm planning and thinking about it and, throwing a challenge out to my friends and being like, you going to do it? Come on. Are you going to do it? So it's cool. I love that that's happening for you.
Well, Fatty, and I love that you can do this on an indoor trainer. Fatty and I, Rebecca, have been talking a lot about indoor training over the past few weeks here on this show. Now, if you follow Rebecca Rusch on Instagram or Facebook, you see a lot of outdoors photos. She's always out and about. I'm guessing, Rebecca Rusch, you're not the indoor training type. In fact, I think we'd be hard-pressed to find any type of indoor training in your dwelling. Am I right on that?
You're actually wrong. A year ago, I would have said yes. I was sort of like kicking and screaming, would use the indoor trainer in the winter when I had to. But actually, recently, when I was preparing for the Iditarod Trail, I got kind of serious with my coach. I got a new Tax Smart trainer, got on Zwift, and surprisingly, I have really embraced it. And every Tuesday, Thursday morning, I meet with my coach. We do hard intervals indoors in my basement on my trainer. And I have really embraced it. And I never would have thought that I would have been the person to do that. And it's been an interesting timing with COVID and now all these other people getting on virtual training. And it's been really fun for me to have little meetups and it's accountability. Someone says we're riding at 9 a.m. on Tuesdays and Thursdays, you got to show up. And so it's kind of strange because I do have the beautiful outdoors right outside, but I'm finding I'm pretty busy at work. I'm trying to get stuff done. I'm trying to pivot my business. And if I don't have a lot of time, and it's quite efficient for me to do an hour and a half on the trainer, blast out my intervals and get right to my work day. And I don't have to worry about weather. I don't have to worry about, pumping up my tires or doing anything. The bike is just sitting there ready to go. So that has been a new development for me since about October, November of last year. And I'm on the trainer, twice a week without fail now, meeting with my coach.
Awesome. So if Rebecca Rusch, the Queen of Pain, is willing to get on the trainer, I guess who among us does not, or who among us does have an excuse? I want to ask you one last question about the Giddy Up Challenge, because there is one option here that I simply cannot imagine anyone selecting or doing, and that is the Queen's Everest Run Outdoors. Run the equivalent elevation of Mount Everest, 29,000 feet. Has anyone signed up for that? To me, that looks like it is strictly impossible.
We do not yet have anyone signed up for that, but people have done it, and they've done it. The way that you do that is, at a ski resort area or a car, and you don't have to run the descents. And so it is a thing that people have done on foot. There was actually supposed to be one scheduled for this summer at Sun Valley at our ski resort where you'd hike up, take the chairlift down, hike up, take the chairlift down. So It's not impossible because you actually don't have to do the downhill if you're doing it on foot. And so that's an interesting Everesting twist. So you get a break really on the descent.
That's interesting. I just, watching Lisa do the Leadville 100 run last year, which is 13,000 feet, thinking almost 3 times that. I simply was like, I just can't imagine that distance being done. But that's interesting. So you can basically reverse shuttle.
Yeah.
If you're on foot. Okay. Fantastic.
It has been done. So I challenge someone out there to be the one, to be the first one to sign up for Everesting on foot.
Please let us know if someone does do that, whether they finish it or not. I think that it would be an amazing story to hear.
Well, I challenged Rich Roll to it because he was supposed to be coming out this summer, and another friend, Mark Hancock, was supposed to be coming out to Sun Valley to do the Everesting on foot. So we'll see if they take it up.
Oh, if anyone could tell that story well, it would be Rich Roll. So, yeah.
So, Rebecca, for now, the RPI is a go, right? You're still planning to put that race on until someone tells you otherwise, until your conscience tells you otherwise?
Yeah, Private Idaho, our registration is still open. We have, we did implement an absolute no-risk policy. So if someone does register and if we are able to have it or we're not able to have it, or no matter what happens, full refunds, deferred, or donate your money to the Be Good Foundation. So, if people are looking for a later in the season event, registration's open at no risk. But I don't know yet if we're going to be able to have it. I'm talking really closely with our local medical director, our county commissioners, and watching really carefully on the development of how this happens. Of course, I want to ride with everyone and I want Private Idaho to happen. But my number one goal is that, our community, our cycling community and my home community are safe. So if we can safely do so, we will. And if we can't safely do so, in the meantime, we're all going to giddy up for good with the Giddy Up Challenge. All
right. So here's the URL for that. It is Rebecca'sGiddyUpChallenge.com. And make sure you spell Giddy Up all as one word, and that's GIDDY. and then up.com. So Rebecca'sGiddyUpChallenge.com.
Hottie, you haven't told us what your challenge is that you're taking on Memorial Day weekend.
Oh, you're going to pin me down right here in front of everybody? Well, I'm probably a baked potato person because of my well-documented injuries early in the year. I haven't climbed more than 1,000 feet in probably 5-6 months. So sounds like me, baked potato. Sounds about right. Enough of a bite there.
That'll be awesome. That's a big day. It's still called the baked potato for a reason.
Yeah. You're still definitely going to be cooked afterward. No question about it. Awesome. Yeah. So we're going to have folks in Hottie doing the baked potato. I'll be hopefully doing the mashed potato. And I will be interested to hear the story of the Queen of Pain doing the Queen's Everest.
Yes.
Rebecca, thanks so much for joining us.
I look forward to riding with you guys virtually on Memorial Day weekend.
I almost got through that interview without committing to anything because, as you know, I'm a non-committal guy, but you got me there. So the other day I actually went out and scouted my hill, and I think I found it. Looks like Westridge Fire Road here in LA, and it's roughly 1,000 feet per climb. So I'll be doing almost 5 climbs or so. That'd be a lovely day, huh? Again, signups and info at Rebecca'sGiddyUpChallenge.com.
Yep, and I am going to be doing the Alpine Loop American Fork side, hopefully 5+ times, and that'll get me 16,000 feet. That's going to be quite a day. So, folks, because this is primarily a mountain bike show, we usually don't talk about Envy's forks, and that is maybe unfair because they do have a bunch. They've, of course, got the road forks for both disc and rim brakes. They've got a cross fork, and they've got a gravel fork that was recently updated. And for those seeking a rigid experience, and I have done this in Leadville, and I think you have too, Hottie, a mountain bike fork.
As you were reading all those fork models, I was just nodding my head, Fatty, because, mountain fork, got that. Road fork, got one. Gravel fork, yeah, I got one of those too. But I love, in particular, my Envy Carbon mountain bike fork. With that cool removable fender and the adjustable offset, it's really awesome. Well, now Fatty, they've added a second mountain bike fork that accepts boost spacing. Boost spacing is 110 for those who may not know. It sits a little taller for a more trail-oriented ride. It has drillings to attach cages for bike packing. Still has that adjustable offset and fender and cable clips like the original. I love riding my Rigid, though, and I still think a Rigid 29er would be a fast way to go at Leadville. Do I still have a suspension fork, though? You betcha. In fact, I have 2 of those. But it is super easy to swap a mountain fork, so having the option to ride Rigid is just terrific. In fact, when my gravel bike went down a few months ago, I just put my Envy Rigid mountain bike fork on my mountain bike, and I had a monster cross bike.
Yep, that new Envy fork, it's a true Swiss Army fork. You can use it in so many ways and for so many applications. And it sounds like you want one. I will tell you, I want one too. It looks like a lot of fun. So check out the new Envy Carbon mountain bike fork at envy.com. That is ENVE.com.
Okay, we have a new expert in our stable this year. Dr. Julie Guthrie is a physical therapist in Los Angeles. Her practice is Synergy Physical Therapy. She's been rehabbing patients for 20 years. She's an orthopedic clinical specialist and also specializes in pelvic floor issues. In the past, she's been a gymnast, triathlete, and currently, she's a mom. In her debut on the Leadville Trail 100 mountain bike podcast, she talked to me about cycling injuries and not the ones caused by crashes or endos, but those ways we hurt ourselves due to the repetitive nature of our sport. Dr. Julie Guthrie, welcome to the Leadville podcast. Thanks for hanging out with us for a few minutes here.
Pleasure to be here.
Cool. We're going to talk about cycling injuries today. First, a little backstory. I came to Dr. Guthrie because a bike fitter was having a problem straightening me out. I was a crooked sitter. I sat crooked on my bike, like off center, pretty drastically too. So much so that the fitter said, go see Dr. Guthrie. She can maybe get your pelvis straightened out. We'll see how that works. And indeed you did, which was great. And I ended up sitting straight on the bike. Also, another full disclosure, I am a client of Dr. Guthrie's because I fall down and break myself once in a while, and she manages to put me back together. But today we're here to talk about those cycling injuries that happen that we may not be aware of. In other words, all that motion we're putting down through the bicycle, Dr. Guthrie, that can cause us, while good, a little bit of harm.
Absolutely. We, as cyclists, we put thousands and thousands and thousands of repetitions on our bodies, and our bodies aren't necessarily made to do the exact same thing over and over and over again, especially if we have any sort of asymmetries or something within our system that isn't quite working 100%, shall we say.
Right. In fact, I calculated the number of pedal strokes maybe in the Leadville Trail 100, and it's somewhere around, if like you're an 8.5, 9-hour racer, it's like 37,000 pedal strokes in the race. And then on top of that, all the training miles we do. So it's a lot of pedal strokes. What are some of the areas you see as a physical therapist break down on cyclists in particular?
I would say that the 3 or 4 top injuries that we see are lumbar spine pain, so low back pain, lateral knee pain, so on the outside of the knee, so kind of IT band insertions, kind of insertional kind of issues, cervical pain, so neck pain, and then knees and hips. Yeah, I mean knees, hip, back. Mm-hmm. Knees, hips, and spine. So
if somebody comes in saying I'm hurting or I'm ailing, or what can be done for them to fix them?
That's a very long discussion. The first thing that we look at really is at least seeing what the training schedule was. There a major change in the training schedule? Because you might be doing everything actually fairly correct. You might have good technique, you might have a fairly solid system, and if you made a training error in terms of increasing mileage too quickly or getting a little too aggressive in your group ride and things like that too frequently and not having enough recovery, that creates a system that just can't recover properly. The body can't recover from that kind of load or that quick change of load. So we first look at that, and then after that we look at what kind of imbalances do we see in a static system, and then if we don't find a whole lot there, then we obviously go to the dynamic system of looking at you on the bike. Mm-hmm. So
as far as those imbalances go, we were talking about, we threw on some fancy words, folks, asymmetry and symmetry, which basically means, asymmetry is, what does that word mean and what does symmetry mean?
So asymmetry basically means that we have one side or one aspect of our body that maybe does not function quite as perfectly as the opposite side, or it may have developed even in utero, like when we were developing as a child or an infant and as a child. We may have a bone or a joint grow a little differently than the other side. So that means that the way that the revolutions are, the path that the joint is going to take is going to be completely different than the other side. Mm-hmm. And if you only have to do that a handful of times during the day, maybe not a big deal. But when we're talking about thousands of repetitions, a little bit of difference on one side can actually equate to a pretty massive issue.
Yeah, so we're talking about body imbalances and then getting on a device which doesn't care about your imbalances, right? It's a symmetrical machine. It doesn't care if you've got one leg a little longer than the other, one big toe a little bigger than the other. It just doesn't care. It's just going to say, you got to pedal me, and I'm going to not really care about your slight imbalances. Now, pain. The cycling is known to dish out its share of pain, and as cyclists, we're used to dealing with it. But how much is too much? How much pain? When should we know, okay, that's it, I'm hurt or I'm hurting myself? Is there a benchmark there?
I would say that a few of the benchmarks would be, as you very astutely mentioned, when we're training hard, muscle pain is muscle pain. We're used to our lungs feeling like they may want to burst. So those types of sensations, we're used to pushing through those or tolerating those. And that gets us into trouble because when you're a day later, 2 days later, 6 days later, hopping back on the bike and really struggling to pedal, I would say deep discomfort, shooting pains, sharp in nature, all of those would indicate that you should probably be paying attention to it at least. And then looking at, I divide all my athletes' programs into a pie chart. And I say, okay, your training may take this amount of time. Your sleep takes this amount of time. Your diet is this amount of your effort. What is stretching? What is your rollings? What is the rest of your support structure like in your program? And I think that we have to look at that pie chart and say, if the rest of the pie chart is off, stress, sleep, diet, self-care, which includes rolling and stretching and all that, and all the other exercises that that helps to support our body on the bike. If all those are off, and we're trying to push on the bike at the same time in terms of volume or effort, we're going to run. You're going to dive into. You're going to get into the red just a little too much.
So we've got shooting pain or one of those signals that says, "Uh-oh, I'm doing damage." Do we immediately run to Dr. Guthrie's office, or can we do some things and maybe test the waters and see if a little rest will get me by and then I'm back on track?
Right. A few days of rest, especially if it's a one-off shoot, you'd look over your shoulder to make sure that you can hop into the lane or something like that, and you get a shooting pain in your neck. No, that's not run to PT, doctor, chiro, whatever. That's not what. That may not be necessary, but if it's every time I look over my shoulder, every time I hop off the bike on this side, or you're getting off the bike and really struggling to stand up, really kind of limping around, relaxing after, and really struggling to get up, and it's not, I feel like my quads and my glutes are pretty tired. If it's like, wow, my back really hurts and I can't function in the rest of my day. Or if you wake up in the middle of the night, if your sleep is disrupted, it's probably time to maybe have somebody take a look at it.
Okay. Well, folks, again, if the pain persists, don't push on. I mean, I know it's natural for us Leadvillers to try to push through the pain and try to get to the finish line or get to the end of that training ride, but listen to your body a little bit. We're going to have more from Dr. Guthrie in future episodes about how to take care of ourselves and maybe prevent some of these injuries. To check out Dr. Guthrie's services, go to synergypt.com. And like a lot of businesses these days, Dr. Guthrie is doing online appointments. So definitely give her a look if you're having tightness or pain.
Yeah, and tightness is actually a really good topic, Hadi, for us to get into something new from the feed. We've told you before that the feed offers way more than just food. They have an entire suite of recovery tools, massagers, foam rollers, compression sleeves. And since getting a massage these days is probably not going to happen, you really have to take matters into your own hands.
Which is why the feed has stocked up on products from Theragun. Theragun makes battery-operated devices that provide deep muscle treatments. You'd probably recognize their massage device. The body of this device has a triangular shape with a massage tip extending from one of its corners. It's designed so the user can do pinpoint massage on tight areas using the pulsing action of the Theragun. Kits come with a second or third or fourth tip as well, so different shapes for different areas to apply the massaging tool. There are 5 different models of the Theragun, including a mini for travel.
Yeah, and there's also a Theragun foam roller that's controllable via Bluetooth. It's hard to find gift items in a nutrition store, but I think the feed has one in the Theragun. This could be a great present for a fellow Leadviller, especially if they're a family member. That way, you can use it too. The feed is back as a sponsor for season 3. We're so glad they are, and you can sign up for a 15% discount from them at thefeed.com/Leadville.
Rider up, Leadville, 100 miles down. Let's let them hear it. That's right.
All right, Hadi, let's go ahead and wrap up season 3, episode 9 of the Leadville podcast presented by Floyd's of Leadville. If you like our show, give us a 5-star rating and a review over at Apple Podcasts. Be sure to share it with your cycling friends, and be sure also to support our sponsors. Let them know you appreciate them making this show possible.
Meanwhile, if you have ideas or questions for us, head to the Leadville100podcast.com comment section and get in touch. That's also where you can find a link to our Slack workspace and jump into our ongoing conversation. We've got channels for bikes and components, clothing, the course, crewing, nutrition, and hydration, tires, weather, really for everything.
For everything. We do, in fact, also have a COVID-19 section where you can talk about all of those things, because that is, frankly, it's a part of our lives. Folks, be safe. Good luck in your training or just your extended base. Thanks for listening. And we are going to see you no matter what, right at the 2021 starting line. We're going to give the final word to Marilee Oates, race director for the Leadville 100.
We know for a fact that we're going to come out the other side, and we're going to see you in 2021, and we're just going to have the most awesome races ever. And I think for myself and for Kenneth, we need to keep reminding ourselves, and I'm reminding you, that we all are better than we think we are, and we can do more than we think we can, and that we are going to come out the other side of this, and we are going to be together again. In the meantime, we're going to dig deep, and we're going to make it through this. We're going to miss you this year. Please keep us in your hearts, because we're keeping each and every one of you in our hearts until we're together again.